Good evening, dear sisters and brothers. Welcome to the evening session of Being Heartful Every Day with Swadhyaya. Today is day 17, and as we continue our journey into the theme of judgment and prejudice, we pause once more in the sacred space to observe, to reflect, and to realign. We began this theme with the understanding that judgment and prejudice are more than just intellectual errors. They create restlessness in the heart and cloud our perception and distance us from the divine essence in others, in ourselves. In heartfulness, transformation begins not with the suppression, but with subtle awareness. As we observe how judgment arises, we become less entangled by it. We begin to create the inner spaciousness where understanding can take a root. The heart, when purified, does not judge, it simply knows. Judgment often stems from the mind's need for control. It wants to categorize, to compare, and predict. But the heart doesn't seem to control, it seeks to connect. Prejudice, on the other hand, is born from past impressions, some scars formed through repetition, trauma, conditioning, and it is rarely visible on the surface, but it shows up in tone, in instinct, in hesitation, and until it is acknowledged, it continues to guide our responses. In the yogic journey, even these subtle tendencies can become visible if we are willing to look. As Daji reminds us, the process of cleaning is not just about removing the heaviness, it is also about restoring clarity. When we live in judgment, we experience inner division. And when we live from clarity, unity becomes possible, not just with others, but within ourselves. Integrating Swadhyaya into our daily routine. The self studies Swadhyaya teaches us not only to avoid what is uncomfortable, but to stay with it lovingly as well. It is a practice of compassionate inquiry, noticing when we are triggered, when we close our hearts, and asking gently why and what I'm really protecting. When practiced with patience, Swadhyaya becomes a form of inner reparenting, a space where we learn to meet our unconscious reactions with wisdom instead of shame. And we gently request you to share the invitation of Heartfulness Master Classes and BHED sessions with your friends, with your colleagues, and family member who may be yearning for a deeper way to live but not yet know how to begin. Let us now return to our study of the User's Guide to Living Part 7, which is by Daji. We started reading this article yesterday, and we will resume our reading from the same article. It is against this backdrop that we need a fresh perspective on universal brotherhood. And in heartfulness, it emanates from the authority of a deeply experiential understanding of reality. The principle is actually very simple. Babuji writes, all things descending from the origin should be treated as coming from the source. To bring home this point, he uses the analogy of a mother and her children. Just as children born of the same mother are related to each other in one and the same way, so are so also are all bound together by the same common ties of brotherliness and are related to each other in the same way. So simple. Just as children born of the same mother are related to each other in one and the same way, so also all bound together by the same common ties of brotherliness and are related to each other in the same way. Babuji. When you try to hurt someone who has the same godly soul in him, your soul and his are actually the same. Now ask yourself, who is hurting who? The same souls only look different because they have different personas arising out of karma. This awareness dawns upon us when we remain imbued in the deeper pools of the Atma Chakra, the second point within the heart region. Unfortunately, many of those who pass through this chakra miss out on the awareness of universal brotherhood due to lack of acquiring the condition, enlivening it, imbibing it, becoming one with it, and uniting with it, which is AEIOU. When we do experience and adopt this universal principle of unity, we get to first base. We cannot be devotees of God without embracing it because it is fundamental to existence. In fact, it is pure science. We are all connected. The heartfulness vision of universal brotherhood comes from the science, from the repeatable experience that at the center of our being, we are all connected with the same reality. This is a common source from which everything was set in motion at the time of creation. At this level, there is no separation. And that center exists in every cell and every atom in the universe. This is also recognized by modern Western science. Scientists claim that some 13.7 billion years ago, just before the Big Bang occurred, there existed an infinitesimal point called a singularity. It was so small and it had no dimensions. The universe as we know it today came into being from the Big Bang. Eventually, the first atoms were formed. The atom is the building block of everything animate and inanimate. It takes 100 trillion atoms to form a single cell in our body. And there are some 37 trillion cells in the human body, all originating from the same source. I repeat, it takes 100 trillion atoms to form a single cell in our body. And there are some 37 trillion cells in the human body, all originating from the same source. Further, genome studies have concluded that there is hardly any difference between one person and the other in terms of their DNA. In fact, the entire human ancestry can genetically be traced back to a common origin in Africa. If this is true, then why is it that we feel so hopelessly separate? Dear brothers and sisters, let us take a rest from the reading right now and take a couple of moments to be in silence, not to analyze these words, but to absorb. Let the words echo, not in the mind, but in the heart's deepest chambers. We will now offer the universal prayer. सभी भाई बहन प्रेम और भक्ति से भर रहे हैं और उनमें सच्ची श्रद्धा दृढ़ होती जा रही है. All brothers and sisters are being filled with and the real faith is growing stronger in them. May this universal prayer awaken love, unity, and brotherhood in the hearts of all. Dear sisters and brothers, as we are ending this day, let us prepare ourselves to offer the bedtime prayer and the inner reflections before we go to rest. You may wish to write a short note in your diary about your reflections. These little acts of self study shape the atmosphere of our inner world and slowly of our destiny as well. And as we move further into this week's theme, let us remain curious, not about others, but about the patterns within our own selves. Let's practice seeing with a heart's eye. Let's practice listening without concluding. And let's practice standing in awareness rather than in reaction. Dear sisters and brothers, thank you so much for joining the evening session today. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the morning session, which is going to be at 6 a.m. And until then, rest in peace, reflect in truth, and allow love to do its quiet work. Wishing you all a very good night.